It was a foggy Monday, the kind of morning where the coffee smells stronger and the silence feels heavier. I was making oatmeal, same way I had for years, slow, patient, the way Miriam liked it. She's been gone 5 years now, and at 77, quiet mornings are about all I have left. Then I heard tires on gravel, my son Eric's SUV, unexpected, uninvited. I opened the door in my robe, and there they were. Eric, his wife Linda, my grandkids Noah and Emily climbing out of the car with 6 suitcases. No warning, no heads up, just here. "We thought we'd come stay for a while," Eric said, avoiding my eyes. Linda was already unloading the trunk. No hello, just directions. She moved like she owned the place. I stared at the bags. 6 suitcases? A few weeks, maybe a month, Eric shrugged, just while we renovate. I hadn't agreed to anything. In fact, the last time we spoke, he only asked how my arthritis was doing. Now suddenly I was hosting a family of 4 in the home Miriam and I built in 1982, and before I could ask a single question, they were inside. Voices filled the air. Smells I didn't recognize overtook the kitchen. My fridge was being emptied. Linda held up a block of cheddar. "Obadiah, this is expired." "My name's Grant," I wanted to say, but I just stood there like a guest in my own life. That was the moment I knew. My quiet days were over, but what I didn't know yet was how far they planned to go, and what they were really after was more than just a place to stay. The first thing Linda did wasn't say thank you. She opened my fridge, pointed at my groceries, and said they were a health hazard. The cheddar I liked, gone. My sausage links, too many nitrates. She tossed it all like I was some reckless old man who'd never made a meal in his life. Eric, meanwhile, walked through the house like a realtor. "Dad," he said, "Linda and I will take the master bedroom. You'll be more comfortable downstairs, fewer stairs for your joints." That room, that was our room. Miriam's books were still on the nightstand. Her perfume bottle, untouched since the week she passed, still sat by the mirror. "I'm fine upstairs," I said. "Stairs keep my knees moving." But Linda cut in. "You're 77, Grant. One fall and it's over." She turned to Eric. "Tell your father we're worried about his safety." Eric gave me that look, the one I hadn't seen since he was a teenager, trying to lecture me with a half smile and hollow eyes. "Just until the renovations are done," he said. "Besides, the guest room's cozy." Cozy. It had a twin bed, an old dresser, and a dusty lamp. I'd used it for visitors who didn't plan to stay. But I moved, not because I agreed, but because I knew fighting then would change nothing. And packing up that master bedroom, touching Miriam's old scarf, folding our wedding quilt, felt like burying her all over again. That night I lay awake on that narrow bed. The walls felt closer, the ceiling lower. My home was no longer mine. But I hadn't seen the worst yet, because what they changed next wasn't furniture. It was everything I'd spent a lifetime protecting. It didn't take long for Linda to start rearranging my life. The old paintings on the wall, replaced with abstract prints from some overpriced design catalog. My photos with Miriam moved into a box. Even the framed picture of us on the porch the day we bought this house disappeared from the living room. One morning, I came back from my walk, a routine I kept since retirement, and my vinyl collection was gone. Gone. Miles Davis, Ella Fitzgerald, Sinatra, albums I'd collected over decades, tucked away with care. I found them stacked in a soggy cardboard box in the garage, covers bent, sleeves torn. "Where are my records?" I asked. "Oh, that old stuff? Linda said, barely looking up. They were collecting dust and Emily's allergic. Those records are worth something, I said. They're part of my life. Well, no one listens to vinyl anymore, she smiled. If you want music, Noah can set you up with Spotify. That's when I knew this wasn't just a visit. They weren't passing through. They were replacing me, quietly, efficiently, room by room, memory by memory. Even Emily and Noah kept their distance. Emily was buried in her phone. Noah only spoke when he needed a ride. I tried to ask about school, their future, but every answer was one word and every excuse to leave came fast. Then came the final straw. I opened the closet in the hallway to grab an old photo album, only to find the space empty. 3 albums, all gone. I found them outside, in the trash, warped by morning dew, and when I asked Linda why, she simply said, "We needed room, and anyway, you can always scan them." What she didn't know was those weren't just photos, they were my life, and someone was trying to erase it. They told me it was for my safety, that I'd be better cared for in a place with nurses and routine, that Pine Grove was a community for active seniors. Sounded nice enough, but the moment I stepped through that door, I knew the truth. The walls were beige, the carpet smelled like disinfectant and loneliness. Old folks sat slumped in wheelchairs staring at a flickering TV like it held the last spark of their memory. A woman shuffled past me in a hospital gown. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know who she was. "This can't be right," I said to Eric. "It's only temporary, Dad," he replied. "You'll adjust." They unpacked my bags like I was moving into a hotel. Except hotels don't lock the medicine cabinet, and they don't hand you a schedule for when you're allowed to eat. Dinner at 5:30. No exceptions. Miss it, and you wait until morning. My room was small, a twin bed, 1 window, a laminated dresser. The kind of place where time doesn't pass, it stagnates. Eric and Linda stayed for less than 20 minutes. Eric checked his phone the entire time. Linda handed a nurse my prescriptions like she was offloading luggage. When they left, I stood at the window and watched their SUV disappear. No hug, no goodbye, just gone. The room felt colder after that, and even though I was surrounded by people, I had never felt so alone. That night, lying on a plastic mattress under a thin blanket, I whispered into the dark, "Miriam, what would you do if you were me?" And somewhere in that silence, a voice inside me answered, "You don't belong here, Grant." And maybe, just maybe, that's when I started to fight back. I was stirring a bowl of chicken stew that tasted more like paste when I heard it. "Grant? Grant Aldridge?" That voice, raspy, familiar. I looked up, and there he was, Ferris Dunham, tall, bony, full beard, same mischievous twinkle in his eye I remembered from the old postal office. We'd worked together for 22 years. He retired to Baltimore to live with his daughter. I hadn't seen him in almost a decade. "What the hell are you doing in this place?" he asked, sitting across from me like no time had passed. "My loving son decided this is where I belong," I said with a bitter smile. He shook his head. "I had a stroke. That's why I'm here. Couldn't fight it. You, though." He studied me closely. "You're still sharp, Grant. Your hands don't shake. Your mind's clear." We spent hours talking, about old times, about everything we lost. Then he asked one question that changed everything. "Wait, is the house still in your name?" "Yes," I nodded. "They never transferred it. Said they'd wait until you know." Ferris leaned in, voice low. "Then sell it," I laughed. "Sell it? To who? I'm locked in here." "You're not locked, Grant. You're just tired, but you're not done." His eyes lit up. My nephew's a real estate agent. He's smart, discreet. You could sell the house without them even knowing." I sat back, heart pounding, mind racing. Could I really do it? Could I take back what they tried to erase? Ferris grinned like the old days. "You want revenge, old friend?" He leaned closer. "Let's do it." Quietly. The next morning, Ferris made a call. 2 days later, his nephew, Horace Dunham, showed up at Pine Grove. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, he looked like someone who didn't miss details. "I've reviewed your case," Horace said as we sat in the tiny garden behind the building. "Your son never filed a deed transfer. The house is still yours, legally and fully." I blinked. "So, I can really sell it?" "You can," he nodded. "And you should." I hesitated. "What about inspections? I'm stuck here. I can't exactly take a bus to Henlopen Acres." Horace smiled. "We'll use the system to our advantage. Pine Grove offers day trips for community engagement. I'll register you for a few, only instead of going to the botanical garden, you'll meet me outside and we'll tour your house quietly." It sounded like a spy movie, and maybe I liked that. 3 days later, I put on my only good suit, polished my shoes, and joined the line for the museum field trip. The bus pulled up. I took one step toward it, then turned and walked around the corner. There he was, Horace, in a black sedan. "Nice day to sell a house," he said. We drove past my old home. Linda's SUV was gone. Eric's car wasn't there either. Horace called the house, pretending to be a plumber. No one answered. "The coast is clear," he smiled. "Let's bring in the first buyers." That day, I watched strangers walk through my home, talking about remodeling the kitchen and adding a pool. It stung. Every word felt like a knife. But something else stirred too. A flicker of justice, a sense of power returning. I wasn't just getting even. I was taking back my name. And what started that day wasn't just a secret plan. It was the beginning of something bigger than I had dared to hope for. Our third house tour was different. No fast-talking couple from the city. No designer sunglasses or questions about granite countertops. This time it was Thornton Barrington, a tall man in his late 50s, dressed simply. Rolled-up sleeves, calloused hands, a tanned face that had seen the sun and the wind. He didn't step into the house like it was a project. He stepped in like it could be a home. "Mr. Aldridge," he said, shaking my hand with a firm grip. "Horace told me your story, and I admire your fight." Most buyers looked at the square footage. Thornton looked at the walls. He asked about the porch, about the trees, about the woman in the wedding photo on the shelf. "Miriam," I said. "She and I built this place together." He nodded. "I can feel that." Then came the moment of truth. "I heard," he said gently, "you're looking to sell, but stay on the property." I braced myself. Most buyers wanted full control, no strings, but Thornton surprised me. "I like the idea," he smiled. "When I was a boy, my grandfather lived in a little annex behind our house. He told me stories by the fire, taught me how to fish. He's the reason I am who I am today." He turned and pointed to the back corner of the yard. "Right there, I could build a guest house. Private, 2 bedrooms, a deck facing the bay, and it would be yours for life." I couldn't speak at first. In that moment, I didn't just find a buyer. I found a man who understood what home meant. That afternoon, we shook hands. The offer came in the next day, 15% over market value, with every detail in writing, my right to live in the guest house, access to my belongings, and dignity restored. Thornton didn't just want the house. He wanted the story that came with it. And together, we were about to write a brand new chapter. They threw a party, a grand one. White tablecloths, flower arrangements, classical music floating through the air, all for Linda's father turning 75. And they planned to host it, of course, right in my living room. Eric came to visit me at Pine Grove a few days before. "Just a little celebration, Dad," he said. He didn't invite me, but he did say one thing that gave everything away. "They've already moved in, Linda's parents, upstairs now. We remodeled it all." That's when I knew. There was no intention of bringing me back. I wasn't family, I was furniture they'd put in storage. But what Eric didn't know was that I had already sold the house. The paperwork had been signed, the transfer was registered, and the new owner, Thornton Barrington, was about to join me in delivering the news. Saturday arrived. I shaved, put on my best suit, and met Thornton and Horace outside Pine Grove. "Are you ready?" Thornton asked. "I've never been more ready," I said. We pulled into the driveway right as the catering truck was unloading. People buzzed around the yard. Laughter, champagne, party favors. Eric opened the door in a rush, his shirt half tucked, holding a glass of wine. He froze when he saw me. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "I'm here," I said calmly, "to visit my home. Or rather, my former home." Thornton stepped forward. "Mr. Eric Aldridge, I'm the new owner of this property. The deed was recorded yesterday." The look on Eric's face, like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. Linda appeared behind him, dressed in pearls, holding a tray of hors d'oeuvres. She saw me, saw Thornton, saw the contract in Horace's hand. The color drained from her face. The house was no longer theirs, and the party was about to be over. You could feel it in the air, like static before a storm. Guests were arriving, old friends, neighbors, some I hadn't seen in decades. They greeted Eric and Linda with smiles and compliments, until they saw me standing in the living room. "What's going on?" someone asked. Eric tried to hold it together. "Dad's just visiting." "Visiting?" I said softly. "No, son. I came to deliver some news." Thornton stepped forward and placed a folder on the piano. "The house has been sold," he announced, to me. Dead silence. Linda dropped a fork. Eric's jaw tensed. Her father, still holding a glass of champagne, looked around, completely lost. "Impossible," Eric said. You're in a nursing home. You can't make those decisions." "I'm not incapacitated," I said clearly. "And I wasn't under duress. I met with a lawyer, a doctor. Everything's legal, everything's final." "But we live here," Linda snapped. "My parents sold their house to move in with us." "And now," I replied calmly, "you'll have 30 days to find somewhere else, just like I did when you forced me into Pine Grove." Their faces twisted. Confusion, rage, disbelief. Linda turned red. Eric clenched his fists. "You're ruining our lives," she hissed. "No," I said. "I'm taking mine back." A ripple went through the room. Whispers, raised brows. Even the guests could see the truth. Prudence, Linda's mother, walked over to her daughter. "You told us this was your house," she whispered. Linda had no reply, and for the first time since they'd pushed me out, I felt taller, straighter, like the man I used to be. "We'll contest this," Eric muttered, eyes full of venom. "You can try," I said, but deep down, he knew he'd already lost, because this wasn't just about property. It was about principle. They left the party broken. Eric barely made eye contact as he ushered guests out with tight smiles. Linda stood stiff at the door, mumbling goodbyes like nothing had happened. But everyone knew the mask had cracked. Thornton, Horace, and I stepped outside as the sun began to set. The same bay Miriam and I once watched together. Quiet, golden, eternal. Thornton turned to me. "You all right, Grant?" I nodded. "I finally am." Back at Pine Grove, Eric tried everything. Phone calls, letters, even showing up at the front desk with flowers. "Dad, we're sorry, we were overwhelmed, we never meant to hurt you." But they had, and their apologies came only after the loss. A week later, I moved into a seaside apartment Thornton had arranged while the guest house was being built. Modern, clean, quiet, and mine. I walked the shoreline each morning, cooked what I wanted, played my jazz records loud, no one told me otherwise. Emily, my granddaughter, visited every Saturday. We talked, laughed. She even asked if she could bring friends by. She told me I seemed alive again. I was. The plans for the guest house came in. 2 bedrooms, wide doors, a porch facing the bay. Thornton sent photos of the construction every week. He even asked my opinion on the cabinet colors. For the first time in years, my opinion mattered. And it wasn't just a house I was getting. It was independence, dignity, and something I thought I'd lost forever. A future, not one dictated by age or guilt, but one I chose freely. As I sat by the window sipping my evening tea, I thought, 77 isn't old, not when you've just started living again, because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't what you take away. It's what you take back. Sometimes I still sit on the porch of my new guest house, watching the same bay Miriam and I fell in love with 40 years ago. The sky turns pink just before dusk, the same way it used to when we were young. I think about how close I came to losing it all. Not just a house, but myself. When they moved in, I stayed quiet. When they took over, I stepped aside. And when they told me Pine Grove was for my own good, a part of me almost believed them. That's the thing no one tells you about getting old. It's not just your body that weakens. It's your place in the world, your voice in the family, your right to say no. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't stop mattering just because you turned 70. You don't become invisible the moment your hair turns white. And you certainly don't have to hand over your life just to make someone else's easier. I don't tell this story for pity, and I'm not proud of everything I did, but I am proud of one thing. I chose to stand up, quietly, firmly, with dignity. And maybe that's the kind of revenge this world needs more of. So if you're listening to this right now, and you've ever felt left behind, or pushed aside, or treated like a burden, let me ask you something. What would it look like if you took your life back? Not through anger, not through shouting, but through action, through reclaiming your time, your space, your worth. You're never too old to demand respect, never too far gone to write a new chapter, and never alone in this feeling. I know how it feels to be quiet too long. So, if this story made you feel something, anything, leave a comment below. Tell me your story, or just say, I'm still here. Because sometimes that's the bravest thing you can say. I'll be reading, and I'll be listening. We're not done yet, not even close.